think as of 30 minutes ago, I saw that we had about 330 people registered. So it'll be great to have as many of you with us this afternoon for our very first regional webinar. Okay. So as I say, we have a very esteemed panel for us this afternoon. So first, I'd like to introduce from Indonesia. We'll do this in alphabetical order. From Indonesia, could you introduce yourself, Ray?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the chance. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Rayman Ramadhani, and you can call me Ray. I am a teacher at junior high school, SMPN3, Banjarbaru, South Borneo, or South Kalimantan, you can say. Thank you.
Thanks, Ray. Nice to meet you. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. Next, we'll go from Indonesia to Thailand. Okay. And I'll hand over to my colleague, Tor. Can you introduce yourself, Tor? To everybody?
Correct. Good afternoon, everyone. According to ASEAN, thank you very much for British Council Thailand and inviting me to the ASEAN's panel's webinar. My name is Wilat Kamikan, or call me Tor. I am a teacher teaching in high secondary school in Thailand, northeastern of Thailand, actually.
Oh, you froze a little bit there.
My city is bordered to Laos, and come time I went to Vietnam.
Thanks, Tor. A little bit of
the education's. It's my pleasure to like work with and this seminar webinar, and also the Thai master trainer working as a trainer programs in with this cousin and Ministry of Education, and working with the teachers of English in Thailand. Thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
Thanks, Tor. So we had a few technical problems there, so apologies for interrupting you there. And then from Indonesia, we go from Thailand. From Thailand, we now go to Vietnam. Okay, and the third of our panelists. Chum, can you say a few words about yourself, please?
Thank you for introducing me, for having me today. Hi, I'm Phang Do Kun Trâm. I'm a lecturer in the English department here at University of Foreign Languages. I've been working as an English teacher and a teacher trainer for nearly 20 years. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much. So that's our panel this afternoon. Ray, Tor, and Chum, okay, from 3 countries from across our region. And it's great also, just looking in the chat here, it's great to see a few attendees, a few people participating from, I see a few people from Chonburi and from Loei in Thailand and other places. I'm not sure if we've got other people from other countries, Vietnam, Indonesia, or others, but please, if you're joining, do say hi in the chat and tell us where you're from. And also, as well as joining us here on Zoom, remember, you can also join on via YouTube live, and hopefully the link, you can see the link in the chat if you have any problems here. Before we get into our discussion, our hopefully lively discussion this afternoon, just to say we should be here for just about an hour. Hopefully we'll finish by 5 o'clock at the latest. Okay, so we'll try very hard to keep to time. I'm also going to introduce to you today. Just bear with me a second. We're also going to introduce to you, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So if you can see on the screen, you can see the Teaching English website from the British Council. And you can see here on the front screen, you can see in a couple of weeks, we're going to have a number of webinars for World Teachers Day. World Teachers Day is actually on the 5th of October. And so you can go onto the Teaching English website there. One of my colleagues will put the link into the chat for you. So feel free to have a look while we're talking and learn a bit more about World Teachers Day. And also starting today is a brand new course looking at how to motivate learners. And you can see that there under training. If you click on there from the Teaching English homepage, you can learn more about the course, how to motivate your learners. And I say that course starts today, and at the end of the session, in about 45 minutes from now, we're going to show you how to register for that course and what you can learn on that course. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing there now. You can see the links in the chat, and now we're going to start our conversation. So we're going to discuss maybe 3 questions this afternoon, and we're going to hear from hopefully all of our panelists, different ideas, different experiences from different parts of the ASEAN region. So first, I want to talk about some of the challenges and discuss some of the challenges we have when trying to motivate our learners. So let's go first of all to Chum. You said before that you're an experienced teacher. You're working with university students in Vietnam, in central Vietnam, in Hue University of Foreign Languages there. So can you say a little bit more about some of the challenges that you face with your students? Chum, you're on mute.
I think that when motivating students, the biggest challenge is how to balance the diverse learning needs of the learners. You know that when students come into class and they are motivated to learn, when they feel that they are involved in the learning process, when their learning needs and interests are considered. But you know that in the classroom, students are not the same. They are differed in a variety of ways, the background knowledge, learning ability, learning styles, interests and aspiration. Therefore, I find that it's a real challenge to cater for differing learning needs.
Okay, so in any group, you always have a variety.
Yeah, I think that in any
learners with a variety of different learning needs and maybe learning styles as well. Yeah. Okay. Let's move. Thanks, Chum. We'll come back to you later. Now let's move to Ray and Tor. Ray and Tor both work with teenage secondary students. So Ray, what's your experience of working some of the challenges of working with your secondary students in Indonesia?
Okay, thank you for the questions. I've highlighted 2 things, 2 main issues related to this. First is students' background. The students' background here, it is about the environment where they live, where the students live. It is about the family, it is about the social condition, it is about the economic condition, parents' educational background or level, and so on. We know that all of those things indirectly influence students' motivation in learning something, especially in learning language. The second is I've made a survey to my students. One of the questions like this: do you think English is important to you? Few of them answered that, yeah, it is important for me because I have to continue my study and so on. But most of them answered that they do not know. They have no idea why they have to learn this, why they have to learn that. So I assume that most of the students in my area especially are fail to figure out the learning benefit. In terms of learning English, probably they would say like this: why bother learning English as the top priority or first place? I think for the certain condition, this it is quite understandable that, you know, you can imagine that if you live in the area where no one speaks English, where nobody has a job, where you need English, or maybe you never meet foreigners, then motivation in learning English will be the real issue.
Mm-hmm.
So most of my students also, as I observe, they learn English only for superficial things, like just for getting score or passing the exam and so on. That's the challenge for me.
Okay, thanks. So yeah, so that's interesting. Again, thinking about dealing with why the students are there. What do they think the reason is that they're there learning English, and that can be an aspect, a challenge in terms of motivating students. Yeah,
exactly.
Thanks, Ray, for that. And Tor, what about you? You teach a similar age group to Ray. What are some of your experiences?
Right, we're talking about the difficulties of the stage, like you know, that talking about teenagers learning. So the difficulty is about like a development stage. Do they really know about themselves or not?
Mhm.
Or then also the teachers really know about how to deal with them. Some of teenagers would never admit their authorities to show amongst their classmates or teachers their susceptibilities. It's important to reassure to them that they have to highlight the sense of what is right or not. So all the teenagers need to be treated as respect, with the respect and the fairness by the teachers or not. This is some of the challenges I think about. And I also talk about to our colleagues that work with us and the teachers that I work in a training session from Bootcamp Thailand or Bootcamp Terbaru that we still connected. We know some of us talking about we are unsure of their own personal value or capacity and intelligence. So know themselves, and also the teachers know the students or not.
Okay, so the teachers have to try to understand a little bit more about their learners, their students, yeah. And it's
Of course.
yeah, and then also, as you mentioned, about being fair and being respectful as well. So those might be some of the challenges. Chum, anything else you might add before we move on to another question? Or Ray, anything to add to what Tora said?
I'm just figuring out how to respond to the challenge. So just
Okay.
move on. Yeah.
Well, okay, no problem. So we've got another couple of questions, and then we'll come to some solutions.
Yeah.
So once we've established some of the challenges, we'll move on to a second question, and then our third question will be coming back to some of those, some of the possible solutions or techniques or activities. Okay. And as my colleague Book has just said in the chat, perfect timing, Book. If you've got any comments that you'd like to share from those of you who are taking part and listening and joining in today, please feel free to add your own comments in the chat, or any questions that you have for Ray, Tor, or Chum as well. Feel free to add those as well as we're talking. We'll have some time towards the end of our 60 minutes this afternoon. So I'm going to move to ask the second of our three main questions today, and we're going to discuss that amongst ourselves while we wait for your comments. So over the last 18 months, as we all know, during the pandemic, we've all had to move from face-to-face learning and classroom situations to online teaching and online learning. So my next question is about whether the challenges of motivating our students, do you think those are similar or different to motivating our students within the classroom? What are yours? I'd like to hear some of your own experiences about that before we move to some of the solutions and activities. Let's start with Ray. What are some of the challenges you've had in Indonesia, in Kalimantan, in Borneo, with moving from face-to-face to online teaching and learning?
Okay, thank you, Deputy. I think mostly similar, but the online learning that we have nowadays made it even harder, I guess. I said so because some issues I mentioned previously, it still become a problem. Now it is added by a new problem. For instance, the lack of family support. I have a case. I have a discussion with the parents of my students, and about their son are not joining online learning. Why? They answer that they are too busy. They are too busy to fulfill their daily need, because nowadays economic condition is really bad, and most of my students are coming from a medium to low condition. So this kind of problems lead to another problems. The next one is the gap between privileged students and those who have disadvantages, especially in accessing technology or internet connectivity. Those challenges are real and should be overcome by the teachers. In another case, beside that, I think the monotonous online learning activities also contribute to the demotivate the students.
Okay.
Probably, yeah, I assume it is because the absence of TPD or teacher professional development. It will rising up the motivational issue among the students, unintentionally, of course. Some of cases like a teacher only send the task and ask the students, you have to read this, you have to read that, you have to watch this, and you have to watch that, and then after that, you have to complete all the tasks, all the assignment, and you have to submit it at 5 p.m. or 2 hours later. I think it will become the additional challenge for online learning.
Okay. Yeah. So kind of two issues there, I think, Ray. What the first issue is, some students don't have that access.
Yeah.
The access to technology, the access to devices, the access to the internet. But once they do, assuming they do have access, then there might be some issues with how we organize our lessons, our online lessons, in terms of, you say, like making them more interesting and less monotonous, perhaps. So thanks, Ray. What about Chum? What have you found in your move from face-to-face to online teaching? Similar ideas to Ray, or maybe some different ideas, different challenges?
There's the challenge related to access. I think that is similar in developing countries and like Vietnam or Thailand. But I also see there's another challenge, that is there's a lack of social interactions among students, and not only with their peers, but also with the teachers. Therefore, I think that when we are motivated, when we want to motivate students and engage students in the learning process, we should consider this issue too.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Chum. And what about you, Tor? Do you agree with Ray and Chum? Do you have similar challenges of planning and teaching your lessons online and motivating once they're online, assuming there aren't challenges with access, as Ray and Chum have outlined, assuming they can gain access to your online lessons, what are some of the challenges that you faced in the online classroom space?
I have no defense to both of our speakers. I mean, it's presented, and I could add it to 3 ideas about like what is the challenge among us, including teachers and the learners too. So we're thinking about like the first thing, we think about authenticities. We want to feel, right? We want the touch or the real people. So sometimes I'm thinking about myself when we were in a training session, or even in a Madhyam higher secondary class. Sometimes I really want to pretend to be cool to impress my student, and sometimes I want to make them feel something or interact with me. So it's one of acceptable that I really want. So I need some time that we call hybrid learning. So online, so it made my student and me far away. So I want to feel something. Here could be the first thing that I can mention. And the second point, when we're talking about motivations, motivating learner, thinking about how we can like make it bold, like their personalized, right? Their personalization. So as a teacher, we know that teenagers want to identify what they're learning, and we sometimes use some activity that we can like help them to personalize themselves in the lessons. Like, what are you going to do in the living at the sessions of COVID-19? So we sometimes keep updating the technologies and some even in the classroom. So we cannot do like that. Or I mean, in a long hour. Sometimes we probably have only 15 or 30 minutes in a classroom because they're learning. We're concerned about their learning expand. So this is important how we can exploit these into our class. I really concerned about this one. The personalizations and also the authenticities. Thank you.
So can I just ask you on that point, Tor? Do you think it's more difficult to personalize lessons online than it is perhaps in a face-to-face classroom, from your experience?
We could say that it could be more difficult from the first time that we try, but you know that from about 6 months or 7 months that we been trying doing an online, we have some techniques that we can use in a classroom. For example, we can relate them to some videos or some clip of like there's a K-pop, and then we can pop up with a question that how can you do something that they can act or record themselves, and if it's the free, we can have the session as the projects work, and then they can have a due date that they can present to our class in online platform. So
all right,
we have it, but we try to fix it too.
Yeah, so excellent. So thanks, Tor, and thanks everybody. So I think in the first two questions, we've tried to outline some of the challenges of motivating our learners, and especially the challenges as we move from face-to-face to online teaching and learning. So now in the next question, we're going to start moving from some of the challenges to some of the solutions, and thinking about some of the practical. I'd like you to share perhaps some of the practical techniques or activities that you use with your students, either in the face-to-face classroom or in the online learning space, to deal with and to motivate your learners, and also to create a positive learning environment. Having outlined some of the challenges. Let's start with Ray first. Can you share some of maybe 2 or 3 of your ideas?
Okay, thank you, David. Maybe we'll start with a saying. You can lead the horse to the river, but you can make it drink. In relation to the motivation, students' motivation, we know that you as a teacher are able to provide tons of materials, but you can make the students feel motivated to learn about it. So in relation to this, as we know that the source of motivation, there are 2 sources of motivation. First is internal, and the second is external. It is hard for us as teachers to touch directly to the internal things, the things that we can do, but we are able to stimulate the external one. So the external thing is the job of the teacher. So in my classroom, I used to apply 3 things. First is maintaining teacher and students interaction, of course asynchronously because of the condition in my area, and the second is about conducting the variety of activities, also give a chance for collaborative based activities, and the last one is providing a space or a room or a chance for students to develop their creativity. So those 3 things, I think, will be beneficial for the students to motivate them to rising the motivation of the students.
Thanks, Ray. We'll come back to some of those ideas in just a minute as well. I think, particularly about the internal and external when we look at the course in just a few minutes. And I can see Chum is excited to share her ideas, building on Ray's ideas. So I'll say no more and hand over to you, Chum. What were you going to share in terms of the practical techniques or activities?
Because I have a similar challenge, like when students, especially when I'm teaching a secondary school students, they can't figure out the reason for their learning English. So one technique, one thing that I do, that is I try to let them visualize their future self, what they are wanting to do in the future, who they want to be, and how English is connected, how English contributes or help them to develop their future self.
Okay.
So I see that it's to certain extent, kind of any kind of job, if they have English, they can develop professionally, and also they have to give them more chances to promote to certain extent, right? Therefore, I think that could be a solution.
Okay, can you get, because that goes back to, if you remember earlier on, Ray was talking about some of the challenges of some of the parents of his students not seeing the value or the benefit of English, and therefore that obviously transfers to their children, your students, in not seeing, you know, why am I teaching, why am I learning English, why am I here? So can you explain a little bit more, Chum? What do you do in your classes to help your students to visualize their future with English?
So for example, at the beginning of the class, I try to ask that who you want to be in the future. Mm-hmm. What kind of job that you want to be to do. For example, they may say, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a teacher, I want to be an engineer, an architecture, or whatever. And then I say, okay, so do you need English to be better in your job, in your future job? Mm-hmm. So kind of, I try to lead them think in that way. I'm leading. Okay. Lead them to think that how English support them. Okay. They can have the training, they have a more opportunity to get kind of the English kind of a training courses in the English countries, and even in the online courses to develop professionally.
Okay.
Right. Excellent. So yeah, there's some of the link. So I think that they can see it. Okay, thanks. And thanks, Chum. We'll maybe come back to you and Ray in a moment. So Tor, earlier you were, have you got any solutions or techniques or activities that you like to do with your use with your students to help them with motivation?
So I could build on Ray's ideas and also our professors too. So a minute ago, we just talked about like a intrinsic motivation, which is soon you're going to provide something about that. So we know that our teenagers or our learners are self-centered. Am I correct or not? You can fix me too. But this is my understanding. And then we start from some actually that emotional and let them enjoy, let them start talking about themselves, about their life or opinion, how to survive in our pandemic, how to buy something online. Let them write a journal entry or some article and blog that we can create, how to help the peoples among in our communities that they created. So we also thinking about like the social media and internet that they have more active, more opportunities to create a platform that they could interested in, and then we can, rather than work on a worksheet or paper that we have in the classroom. And so we have more time to let them chat endlessly. Okay. You know that if they're interested in a topic that interests, they can continue themselves on their own. So this is some idea that we can help them during the pandemics or even in online classes started.
Yeah, so that, I think that goes back to what you were saying before, Tor, about personalization. Yeah, as well, making everything very relevant, relevant to the students, relevant to their lives, relevant to their age, because they're teenagers, perhaps, and going also relevant to their lives during the COVID period as well.
That's correct.
Yeah. So that's a really nice idea. Any other ideas from Ray or from Chum? Anything else that, as you've been listening to each other, any other activities or techniques that you'd like to share, Ray?
Yeah, I do agree with Tor mentioned previously that I think I ever did it in my classroom. Providing a space for a chance for students to develop their creativity. I mean, this kind of personalization.
Yeah.
In my classroom, I used to chunk the materials, starting from the general things to the complex one, to the more complex one, or the easiest one, etc. And then at the end of the lesson, they have to create something. They have to produce, and then they have to publish it in social media, like Thor said. So
Right.
their friends can, what is it, give a comment, compliment, etc. It will rise the motivation that the students think that, oh, this is the benefit that I get, or they can grab the idea
Yeah.
of the learning English. I think that's, thank you.
Thanks, Ray. That's a really nice idea, and also it's a nice idea because I think you mentioned before about collaboration. You know, Tor was talking about, you know, students, teenagers, perhaps at the beginning they, you know, think about themselves, maybe a little bit,
Yeah.
you know, self-centered but self-involved, perhaps, as Tor was mentioning. But yeah, giving them opportunities to collaborate, to be creative, but also a benefit of, not a benefit of COVID, but a benefit of online learning is that blend between, and I think somebody mentioned before about hybrid, between the face-to-face, the live, the synchronous, and the things we can do offline, the asynchronous activities. So exactly as you mentioned, Ray, there's an opportunity there outside of the face-to-face class time online. They can share, they can publish, they can be encouraged to comment on each other's work, to give each other peer feedback and peer evaluate. So that learning process can extend not just in the face-to-face time, but outside of the face-to-face time, in those asynchronous spaces as well. Great. Chum, anything else you want to add in terms of some practical techniques before we move on?
So when I'm hearing Tor and Ray talking about personalization, I would like to add one more thing. That is, I'm thinking that personalization is not only we personalize the teaching content or instruction and involving students in creating the materials, but let's try to let students to monitor their own learning process. Let them involved in kind of setting their learning goals, and they feel more responsibility for their own learning. They see the milestones, how to get to the goal, and we help them to check their progress, to celebrate their achievement, and through that process, they understand the expectations, how to get there. So I feel that they're more involved in the process. They feel more engaged. And if we can involve more of a peer feedback, it's really nice too.
Yeah, thanks, Chum. That's a great. I'm glad you mentioned the idea of, like, often we talk about learner autonomy and encouraging learner autonomy and opportunities to hand over some control. The teacher doesn't have to be in control of everything, and we can give some of that control, some of that responsibility to our students, especially teenage students, so that they feel some ownership of the learning process themselves, and that should give them some motivation, both intrinsic and extrinsic, to go back to the point Ray and Tor mentioned earlier. Excellent. There's some really nice ideas there. Right, I'm going to pause there, and I would like to hand over to the audience. I think we're up to. Oh, sorry, Tor, you're going to add something first.
I think that this idea may generate some explanations about, like, after we concerned about their personalizations activities, and also we ask them to talk about themselves. You know that we have some more demotivated issues happens there because they lack of choices, right? Lack of idea. So as a role of the teachers, or even like I can promote the peer help, as John mentioned earlier, we also think about that we can help them choice. You know, they want to be taken seriously, treated as individual with their own idea. But sometimes we need to give them choice to have a choice to choose or select it, and then they feel some ownerships of, or even have a commitment to start to learn the program by themselves. Right. And even they can have a group decision, individual decision about learning from an assessment for themselves. Yeah. We can strike the balance between the teenager participation, decision, and making the total teen control in the same time too.
Okay, thanks. And I think that Thanks, Tor. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that also goes back to what Chum, I think, was saying before about how to engage the student, different ways to engage. And also Ray mentioned about interaction, and I think somebody else mentioned as well about the interaction between, not just between teacher and students, but between students themselves. Yeah, and all of those, throwing all of those in the mix in order to motivate our learners even more to learn English. Excellent. Yeah, some really nice ideas there that we've shared so far. So let's go over to the audience. I think we're up to about 60 plus people so far. So welcome everybody this afternoon. So we've probably got about 10 minutes now. We're doing well for time, keeping my eye on the time. So if we have maybe 5 or 10 minutes of some questions or some comments, or you've listened to Tor and Ray and Chum sharing their experiences, maybe you in the audience would like to share some of your experiences or ask some questions. Book, I'll hand over to you. Have you got any questions or anybody that you'd like to nominate from our audience who has something to share?
Do you have to show my camera? We've got a couple audience raised their hand earlier, but they have already lowered their hands. I'm not sure if maybe the question has already been answered. Okay. But I think at the meantime, we don't have any question at the moment.
Yeah. What was, so let's try before we go to books, to Poom's question, we'll come back to that. How do we motivate ourselves? So how do teachers motivate themselves? That's a good question. We'll come back to that in just a moment, Poom. But I saw that Ajahn Farid in the chat, I saw had raised his or her, excuse my hand. So Ajahn, do you have a question that you want to raise or you want to speak out or put in the chat? Or maybe we'll come back to you, okay, in just a moment. So let's, while Farid has a chance to think about that, let's go to Poom's question. So as teachers, we've talked a lot today about motivating our learners, but how do we motivate ourselves? Let's go to Tor first.
All right. So the very important sentence that I always talk to myself and write on the mirror, we say that teachers as learners. So when we set up like this, we can set up the ways to learn ourselves. The learning is a kind of growing process. If you stop learning, you die.
Okay, so that as a teacher, we always have to be learning ourselves.
Yeah, I cannot help you. I cannot point the right way to you, but I can help you to set. I mean, the teachers that talk to me, the student that talk to us, I can provide some idea to create a way to work to their own success. Okay. So if we can keep staying with the people that motivated, all right, this is very easy. Be with the people or the person that they're really motivated and you feel something. If after you feel something, you want to do something too. All right.
So you mean that as teachers, we should seek out like-minded teachers who want to improve themselves, better themselves, and continue their own professional development and their own learning.
Right. So I ask just one last word. Okay. We think about one big word, like a professional learning communities. So amongst the communities that we have, small in your village, small in your school, or bigger in your country, or even bigger in ASEAN. So we'll learn from people that their success, their failure, and also we feel that we know the way that to treat our ways. So that's it.
Okay. Right, thanks. Let's move on to Ray or Chum. Would either of you like to add to what Tor was saying there about the importance of teachers as learners?
Me, probably.
Yeah, Ray?
Yeah, I do agree with Tor explain about the lifelong learner as a teacher. And I think I have already mentioned on the second question, I guess, it's about TPD, teacher professional development. Yeah. As a teacher, we have to develop all the time because we know nothing. about the challenge that we will face in the next or couple years ahead. So to maintain the motivation and our motivation, I think we have to continue learning. And then it is interesting when Thor said that we have to make a to join to the community with teachers who have the same vision. I think it's about joining joining the circle, creating a circle of our friends, and one of the way is joining the British Council webinars, I think.
Oh, very good. Good advertising there, Ray. Yeah, we'll talk more about that, our series, in a few moments. I'll talk more about what we're planning to do in October in this ASEAN English teacher community. Chum, thanks for that, Ray. Anything you'd like to add to what Tor and Ray have been saying about
I totally agree with Ray and Tor. That is, we need to join the learning community where people can pass on the positive learning and motivation for the teacher to still engage in their teaching. And I think the teachers, I myself always try to keep a growth mindset. Whenever I see the challenges, I consider it as something that I need to overcome, something that is in apostrophe, that is something interesting that I need to find out the solutions, and that is keep moving on.
And I think we can all agree that the last 18 months since COVID, there's been a lot of learning amongst teachers.
I agree.
Teachers across the globe in Asia and in our countries have had to learn very quickly and support each other in that transition from face-to-face classroom teaching to online teaching. So that is a perfect example. What we're living through and going through at the moment is a perfect example of teachers being very responsive and supporting each other and learning from each other in terms of how to make that shift from face-to-face to online teaching. I can see a couple of questions coming in now, so thanks for that. I'll just try to farm these out. Anybody can answer these. The first one is from Tay Chun. I assume that's someone from Vietnam. How to build intrinsic motivation in students if they don't want to learn? That goes back to the point Ray mentioned earlier. Anybody would like to try and answer? That's a really difficult, really challenging question, that one.
Let me start this one. So we think about that. This is their goal. They don't want to learn, but the thing that it's about, this is the pedagogy thing in the classroom, the environment that you set up. They have their own interest. As a teacher, we have to find that thing, right? If you find that thing, that what is important to them, all right? To me, the most important to me is not money, but it's like a growing vegetables, eating in the morning, and have a food like 3 meals a day. So if we can find out that goal or that survival goal, we can have them taught. So let's starting with the starting point, because we always thinking about this is a classroom. You have to follow the pages that I conducted. You have to follow the lesson.
And that I'm going to interrupt there, Tor, just because I'm keeping my eye on the time. And that, I think that also goes back to what Chum was saying before about asking her students to visualize the future. So then again, making her students try to really try to find what is within themselves, what is the internal or intrinsic motivation for learning English. And that also goes back to Ray's point right at the beginning about, why are we here? Some students are asking Ray, why am I here? Why am I learning English? What's the point? So Chum, you're going to add something?
Yeah, and I would like to add that is the students tend to be demotivated when they still see that the dream is so far away and it's hard to get. Therefore, we help them to set the learning goal, something very realistic and achievable to them. And we set in a smaller milestones and let them see they do progress. And they see, the dream is getting here. Kind of, you can achieve it one day. So I think that they will feel more motivated and engaged rather than just immediately tap into the yeah.
So kind of step by step.
Exactly.
Yeah, because Ray, you were talking I remember you talking about a learning pathway or learning route map. Do you want to share what you were saying about what you try to do with your students to help them with their intrinsic motivation?
Yeah, I ever did that. I create a learning path, a learning journey. I mean, I use Genially to work with it, so the students know the end of the lesson, and every point in the learning path they can access it by themselves everywhere and every time. So they can control. They have a control. Whether they want to continue or not.
Okay, thanks. Excellent. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to give you, in a few minutes, in about 5 minutes, I'm going to give all three of you a chance to give us one final top tip, a final tip for helping you or helping the teachers on our webinar today. We're still up to 60 plus people on the call. To think about one final tip for learner motivation. But before we do that, before I ask you that, we're going to spend just a couple of minutes talking a little bit about CPD, Teacher Professional Development, and the online course that's available that we showed you via the Teaching English website right at the start of the call, the webinar. And I can see in the chat, thanks to Maria, there's a question from YouTube from Tuntun. I don't know which country Tuntun is from. How can we give homework and correct it online? So I'm not going to answer that question, but I'm going to show you on the MOOC, on the online course, where there is an answer to that question, okay? So what I'm going to do now, if you just bear with me a second, I'll try to share my screen very quickly. Yes, okay, so I showed you before the Teaching English website. We put the link in the chat. Oops, I'm not going to show you that. And then, as I say, if you click on training, and if you click on here, you can see details. Oops, hopefully, a little bit slow. Yes, you can see here about the Teaching Pathways course called How to Motivate Learners. And you can see all the information here. There are 3 main modules. The course starts today and lasts for 4 weeks, and it's completely free of charge. And at the end of the course, if you complete all the tasks and you achieve a score of 70% or more, you can get a British Council certificate. So before I share with you some of the details of the course, Chum, because I've registered, but Chum is going to show you, hopefully, how to enroll on the course. So I'm going to hand over to Chum for a minute or two.
Okay, I will share my screen.
Thanks, Chum.
So we go enroll on this course here. Is that right?
Yep, that's right. So it's actually very easy to register, and Chum's going to show us how to enroll, how to register on the course. And then I will show you, once you've registered, I'll show you what you do. Okay, so are you, so first of all, you have to be a register for Teaching English if you're not already registered, okay?
So that is logged in. I haven't got an account.
You haven't got an account, okay. So if you haven't got an account with Teaching English, you need to click on Create New Accounts, okay? And you need to put in some very simple information in here. So some of you on the call might already be registered as members of Teaching English. Remember, this is all free of charge. There's no cost for this. So excellent. So on here, you put in your username. So you can put in any name for your username, your email address, which Chum is doing there. And then you can confirm your email address. Then you make your own password. So again, be careful with the security. And then you can register for newsletters if you want, the Teaching English newsletters for either for teachers or teacher educators. Fill in some information, say which country you're from. So Chum's from Vietnam. And click at the bottom to say you're over 18 and that you're not a robot. This one is this one I found a bit challenging. Yeah, can you, which ones are stairs you've got? Okay, all right. So, and then hopefully once, and then if you create new accounts at the bottom there, oh, something's missed. Ah, yeah, you need to confirm.
Oh, no, maybe I have already
maybe, yeah,
registered with that account, but I
that's
forgot.
good. That's why we're doing this, because we always make mistakes with, I make these mistakes all the time. Your email, your two email addresses are slightly different, yeah? Ah, excellent, yeah. And be careful with your spelling, yeah? Okay, that's right, yeah. And then, oh, you're very fast typist, chum. Much faster than me. Okay, so we need to check that you're not a robot again.
Hope that I don't want to read back again. Okay,
that's okay. That's all. We've got plenty of time.
Bicycle. Where is it? I don't see
if,
any.
If there are none, click skip.
None.
If there are none, click skip.
Okay.
Traffic lights.
Maybe this one.
Maybe this one, yeah.
You are officially not robot.
Okay.
Okay, so now.
All right, so you're in. So now you're in. So now you can.
And then I go back to the enrollment.
Exactly. If you go back to the enrollment, you should be able to, and it should be able to enroll immediately now.
So I go back.
Yeah, if you go back to the home page.
Home page.
When I did this the other day, it automatically took me to the course. You click on training. Yep, on the training on the right, on the third one down.
Okay, this one.
There. Exactly, and then back over to the left, and click there. And then when you go to enroll on the course, you should be able to very easily enroll now, because you've already registered. There you go. So you're already enrolled in the course. Okay, how to motivate learners. If you click on start program, then you can share with everybody. So you can see here. So already today everything is green because the course starts today. So you can start doing the getting started tasks just to get you used to online learning. And then you've got the 3 main modules there. So if you can just click through those, that will help me, saves me going to sharing my screen. So here we're looking at motivation, intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, which all of our speakers today have talked about. Also some case studies on motivation. Module 2, Chum. I think, yeah, looking at motivation in the classroom. Look at unit 3 there, feedback in motivation. So Tun in YouTube before was asking about homework, giving feedback on homework. So maybe there's some answers to your questions there. Also talking about creating a motivational atmosphere. And finally, in module 3, looking at activities. So again, some of the problems and solutions we've looked at today. Personalization, we've talked a lot about personalization and some personalization activities. And finally, the importance of games and games in motivation as well. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Chum, for that.
Let's stop sharing.
Yeah, you can stop sharing now. That's a great little introduction. So hopefully, thanks, Chum, for doing that in real time and being so fast with your typing. So that's a great introduction. And again, the links are there in the chat for all of you. So we encourage you to go online, go on the Teaching English website, and Chum has shown you easily how to enroll on. First, register if you're not already registered for Teaching English, and second, then enrolling on the course, how easy it is. Remember that it's all free of charge, and it's for the next 4 weeks. We just have 6 minutes left. I'm determined that we'll finish on time. So I said that to finish, I'd like to, we've got some interesting tips as well. One tip there from, who's that? From somebody in Thailand, I think. Warm up by the song. Okay, yeah, warm up by the song. Acting like the video, that would be great, particularly with primary children as well. Next, learn about the words, how to use that words in a sentence. Yeah, some great ideas there. So that's a great tip from the audience, from Ajahn Chanchira. Thank you, Ajahn Chanchira. If you've got any other tips, put them in the chat. Otherwise, we're going to hear from some final tips from our panelists. Okay, let's go first of all to Chum. One final tip from you. for motivating your learners?
When I'm looking at the module 3, I see there is a motivational environment. So I'm thinking of if the teachers can create the safe environment where students can fail and learn from the mistakes, it's really nice for their learning process.
Yeah, and I think that's especially true. It's especially true in a face-to-face classroom, but even more in an online learning environment, perhaps. That sense of feeling safe and secure. It could be really important to make them feel encouraged, engaged, and motivated and safe. Ray, what about you? A final tip from you?
Okay, thank you, Davide. In order to stimulate the motivation, students' motivation, I propose 2 things. First, think about content, and the second one is about packaging. I would like to explain it more. Content is where you are able to chunk the materials, and you provide the materials, the suitable material, whether it is appropriate or not, or something like that. And packaging is about the way you deliver the lesson, the way how you deliver the activities. Everything's related to the way how the lesson is presented to the students.
Yeah,
I think that's
a really interesting. So I think there's another way of saying that. We often talk about the content, which you've already mentioned, and the process. So the process is the packaging.
Exactly.
Yes, I like that idea about the packaging, so the variety of activities, the different ways we engage the students, how we use the students as a resource. Going back to some of the ideas that all 3 of you have mentioned this afternoon. Yeah, that's that idea about content and packaging, content and process, and the variety of activities, variety of methodology, variety of instruction patterns as well. Tor, you have the last, thank you, Ray. Tor, you have the last word, your final tip for our audience today.
Actually, it's not different from Dan Chong, because it's about like taking risk.
Okay.
Right. It's about like try new things. It's the disruptive ages. We still have time to try new things. Like the ideas of enrolled course of British Council. It's a new things to me too. I probably enroll that, and we could learn from the ideas of it's new to us. As a teacher, we'll find ways to have new thing and risk ourselves, or you're going to lose your chance. Thank you.
Thanks, Tor. And again, just to repeat, as we said before, I think teachers all over the world, and especially in Asia, have shown how prepared they are to be resilient and to learn new things over the last 18 months. Yeah. Teachers have been I think teachers have been recognized as being the group of people around the world who've had to move from their face-to-face classrooms into online teaching, and have done it amazingly in the last 18 months and continue to do that. So again, hopefully things like the course, like the online course that we're introducing today, is another way for teachers to do that as well. Yeah. So it's almost 5 o'clock, so it just remains for me to say a big thank you to our speakers, Ray from Indonesia, Tor from Thailand, and Miss Chum from Vietnam. Thank you so much for taking your time to share all your vast experience and all your amazing techniques and ideas with our audience of 60, 63, I think 65 I saw at one point today. So thank you so much, all 3 of you. Really appreciate your time. And just to say to our audience as well, don't forget that as my colleague Book has put in the chat there's a survey at the end. So please, when you close, when you leave, don't forget to complete the survey. It's a very simple survey. And when you complete the survey, you should be able also to get a certificate of your attendance of today's event as well. And thanks to all in the audience. And also, we said there's going to be more. This is the first webinar of a series. So on the 12th of October, we're going to have our next webinar, which is looking at climate action in language education. And again, there's a link my colleague Book has put in the chat there there's a link. You can register today for the next webinar on the 12th of October. So thanks everybody. Thanks to all 65 of you for taking part, and especially huge thanks to Ray, to Tor, and to Chum for your time today. We really, really appreciate it. Thanks everybody. Enjoy, register for the MOOC. See you on Teaching English, and we'll see you in 4 weeks at the next webinar. So thanks. Have a great afternoon. Have a great evening. Thanks everybody. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.